I was recently speaking to a group of medical professionals and I asked the question, who here wants to work full time until they're 65 years old? You could have heard a pin drop in the room, okay? Most people who have worked in medicine for more than 5 minutes recognize burnout as a real thing, and the opportunity to step away, reduce hours, retire early before you're too old to enjoy it is most people's dream. I'm Kristen Burton. I'm a critical care PA, and I went from $161,000 in student loan debt to a millionaire at 31. We are on track to be fully work optional 2 decades before standard, only through investing in the stock bond market and real estate. In this video, we're going to break down what financial independence actually means for a PA or NP and how to create it. Big picture, financial independence means that your assets will pay for your expenses indefinitely. You can do this a lot of different ways, right? You could buy a huge real estate portfolio that cash flows enough to cover all of your expenses. You could invest in operating businesses where you're a true passive owner, not an operator, and you get paid out in profit distributions. There's lots of different ways to structure this, but the most common, and for a lot of folks the easiest, is to create this with a stock bond portfolio. It's simple. You can get started with 20 bucks and you can do it by yourself without having to take out extra loans or have a bunch of capital. So for a lot of reasons, for a lot of folks, this is the first path towards financial independence. Now the problem most medical professionals face is that they know, hey, I don't want to work full-time till 65. Or if I do work full-time until 65, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of kids and grandkids, that I'm traveling a bunch, really enjoying life. They have that vision of what they want that season of life to look like, but they have no idea the numbers behind getting there. So I'm going to break this down step by step. What does it actually look like to create financial independence as a PA or NP using a stock bond portfolio? What does the math look like in the background so that you can stop being the person who goes, all right, I have no idea what I'm shooting for, and actually has some numbers and a plan that actually creates success? The first thing to do is figure out the nest egg goal, right? Begin with the end in mind. The age-old personal development principle applies here very, very well. It is impossible to project what you need to invest each month or each year if you have no idea what you're shooting for. Okay, if you know the goal, you can work backwards based on your age, average rates of return, and you can actually figure out what I need to do this month. But without the big goal, you have no way of knowing any of that. So first, let's look at that. Let's first talk about the core assumptions. I normally assume replacing 80% of current income in retirement. Now, some folks will say 70%. The classic answer, depending on who you ask in the financial industry, will be somewhere between 70 and 80% of current income. I err on the side of 80% because I like to travel, right? And I want to be able to help family and make a charitable impact. So I want a little bit more flexibility there and really don't like the idea of being on a tight budget. Okay, so 80% for me. Now I ignore Social Security when I'm planning my own numbers. And the simple reason is this: the system is poorly funded. And while I personally doubt it will not exist in any form when I'm retired, I also have no idea what the calculations will look like that will determine my Social Security payout in 3.5 decades. Okay, so I ignore those numbers, and if I were to receive a sizable Social Security payout, which I'm not certain that it would be sizable, but if I did, for me it would be bonus. I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch, and so I'm not going to assume that that's going to be there in its current form so far in advance. Now, if I were 59 right now, it would be a different conversation, but I'm not. I'm in my 30s. And so the time horizon for me until Social Security is really quite long. That is too big of a variable or a wild card for me to include it in my assumptions. You do what you want. Next, I assume an annual inflation adjustment of 2.5%. You can go higher. I probably wouldn't go lower, right? If you look at historical data, 2.5 to 3% is probably reasonable over long periods of time. But unless you've been under a rock, we've seen some higher inflationary periods lately, And it is quite possible that could be an underestimation. Regardless, I take that 80% of my current gross income and I forecast it out. 2.5% annual inflation rate until retirement. Now, if you're like, well, this math is confusing me, I want the quick sheet, I want the cheat sheet, we have it for you. It's totally free. It's inside the Millionaires in Medicine Club. Click the link below, you can get access, and I have a table breaking this down by income so that you don't have to do the math for yourself. But if you want to do the math for yourself, this is how it works. 80% of current income, annual inflation rate adjustment of 2.5% gives you the goal you're trying to create in terms of income in retirement. Now, how much do you need invested to create that? That's probably beyond the scope of this video to explain all of the mechanics behind it. For this video, we're going to assume what's called a 4% withdrawal rate, or the safe withdrawal rate, that's been studied, that's been determined to be probably okay. Now, I have a whole other video looking at the actual data supporting that and whether or not that holds true for an early retiree or if you need to make adjustments and what the underlying assumptions were in the data that generated that 4% rate of return, or rate of return, withdrawal rate for retirement. That's another video. For this one, we'll assume 4% of your portfolio will be withdrawn to create your income that you're living off of in retirement. Why 4%? Again, there is data saying, hey, look, if we stick in that range, odds are we're not going to run out of money before we die, okay? Which is the primary concern. If you want to learn more about withdrawal rates, again, I've got another video on that. But if you stick in that range, odds are you will not outlive your money. So now you have your goal income, you have the 4% withdrawal rate. It's a simple flip of the equation that tells you goal income times 25 gives you the goal nest egg. Okay, so here's an example. If you earned $100,000 a year and you were going to replace 80% of that, that would mean you would replace $80,000 a year, right? Easy math. Well, say you're 30, so you're going to inflation adjust that out for 35 years until you're 65. Now we have a new number, the inflation adjusted number of about $180,000. Now that might be more than you think, but remember, like you talk to your grandparents, right? How much did milk cost 50 years ago? How much was their first house? How much was their first car? My grandpa went to college for like $300 to become an engineer, okay? The same thing will happen to us. And even though that $180,000 sounds huge right now, it will not be huge in 35 years. Then you take that number and you multiply by 25. That gives us a number between 4.5 and 5 million. That's the goal. Now you might be going, whoa, that's astronomical. I had no idea it was going to be in the multi-millions. I've been saying for years that every single medical professional needs to become a millionaire in medicine, right? Not because it's an aspirational goal, but because it is a genuine requirement for you to create retirement. If you do not have a multi-million-dollar portfolio when you go to retire, you'll be making lifestyle cuts. Because even if you do get a Social Security benefit that's bigger than we think, you need to still have several million dollars invested in order to create a situation where your lifestyle doesn't change, your purchasing power doesn't change despite inflation, and that can be sustained for multiple decades of retirement. Okay, recap. 80% of gross income, inflation adjust out to your retirement year. So if you're 30, that's 2.5% every year from 30 for 35 years to 65. Times 25 is going to give us our goal number. Again, assumes a 4% withdrawal rate in retirement. May or may not be reasonable if you're retiring early. Conversation for another day. But this at least gives you the mark of what do I need to do to create that standard basic retirement. Now this should impress upon you one thing. You need to start now. Because if you're waiting, it's hard to generate a portfolio of multiple million dollars. And it's even harder if you wait until you're 30 or 35 or 40 to really get intentional about making it happen. Now, you're probably like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of things pulling at me right now, right? Like, I need to replace the house, replace the car, save for XYZ vacation. I've got my student loan debt. I've got the credit card debt. How does it fit all together? I encourage you to join the Millionaires in Medicine Club. We have a bunch of free content putting these things in order for you so you can figure out how the student loans piece together with the investing and how to make a plan for yourself that actually addresses all of your needs. So again, totally free. Click the link below, make sure you get in there, and make sure that you start investing now, because every single moment that you wait creates opportunity cost where you have to invest more every single month to achieve the same result. Remember, these are basic retirement numbers. Okay? Most people don't want this. Most people want something better than this. So start now. Don't miss another day. If you're not investing yet, this is your sign, right, to get started. And we'll see you inside the Millionaires in Medicine Club.